Yo, coming to you live from World Championship in San Jose. Welcome to the Living Legends podcast.
Oh, hello there. This is Professor Teklo Vossen coming in from Teklo Industries. And you want to know where the best place to go is for the Bright Lights pre-release in Pennsylvania? That's right, the Banished Zone on September the 30th at 6 p.m. and the Portal Comics and Gaming on October the 1st at 12 p.m. That's right, a double header, $30 entry per event. And if you attend both events, you get an entry to win a box of Bright Lights at each store. The box will be given out on release day the following week. So just go and support your local game stores in Pennsylvania and the Banished Zone, of course, our sponsors here at the Living Legends podcast, and just have a whale of a time in the city of bright lights. Teklo Vossen, out.
Not dying to blood debt, just dying to debt in general.
Dying to real actual debt.
Suit.
Dying to just real actual
real
debt.
for me. Dying
Just
to debt.
real crippled debt. But yeah, welcome back to the Living Legends podcast. I'm your host for today. My name's Az from Goarin Gaming, and joined as always by some lovely folks in the Flesh and Blood community. We've got Kel from Red Zone Rogue, also known as Red Zone Rogue.
Hello. Both, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, as
I think he just is.
I don't know.
I've never seen Kel and Red Zone Rogue in the same room at the same time, so I don't know.
I know I haven't. So there's something suspicious going on there. Hello.
Brilliant. And then we got Bill as well from Spike Feeders.
Hello, I am Bill from the Spike Feeders. To start this off, I know that I say that I'm Bill from the Spike Feeders on all socials. Now that's true for something other than Twitter. I am officially on Blue Sky for anybody that is also on Blue Sky.
I'm not.
What is that?
It's Twitter, but without Elon Musk. But
I see.
I was telling Rob, I don't know if I mentioned it on here, but I just randomly have over 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm like, I guess when Twitter fails, I'll just go to Instagram because I've somehow cobbled together at least a 4-figure follower amount. So
yeah, just be a Flesh and Blood influencer amongst a sea of Starbucks influencers.
Yeah.
Starbucks influencers.
Hey, maybe.
Brilliant.
Actually, no. No. I was saying maybe Starbucks can hit me up, but there's a little.
No, from what I know about you, you want Arizona Tea to hit you up.
No, I actually don't like Arizona Tea all that much. Pure Leaf. Hey, if we're going to talk about like the big brand
that's
ones,
the one.
I do like Pure Leaf. Yeah, or the Gold Peak. Gold Peak's also pretty good. So Pure Leaf or Gold Peak. Yep.
All these.
Well, actually, you know what?
American brands. I'm just not even a clue what's going on here.
Liquid Death hit me up. I literally buy like 2 cases of this a week. I got their new melon flavor. It's really good. I don't know if it's new. It's new at the store that I go. Anyway, let's talk about Flesh and Blood.
Let's talk about Flesh and Blood. Yeah, absolutely. It's already off the rails. Baby. And speaking of off the rails, I'm going off the rails today. Got on a Asahi.
Cheers, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Cheers to some wonderful friends in this chat, as well as LSS for continuously giving us spoiler cards to show off to the world as well. So hopefully we can all get involved again as always. But yeah, we're going to be speaking about our top 5 cards in Bright Lights. And if you've tuned into Living Legends podcast before, you'd know that this isn't the top 5 meta cards or anything like that. It's our top 5 cards for various reasons, and obviously we can go into those. But yeah, it's a fantastic set. But I think a good place to start would be the Mechlovasan himself, because that is a unanimous cool thing, and it happened with Levia last set. It was the first demi hero that we received. So who wants to read out this Mechlovasan?
Mechlovasan, the Mechropotent Mech Boy.
That's right.
Mech
you know what? I volunteer as tribute. Where is this
volunteer as tribute. Okay.
So first of all, he's the backside of a card.
Oh yeah. Let me pull.
Nice.
Let me pull the backside. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So yeah, the first half, the half that you will actually see in probably most of your games, is the front half, and it's called Singularity. which is his sort of very similar to the other shadow invocation cards, is what I usually call them, like Doomsday and Eclipse, things that create a thing. And this is extremely similar. So this is a Mechanologist action construct. So this is the second construct that we've seen thus far. It costs 6 pitches for 1, blocks for 3. And it is a legendary Mechlovasan specialization, so you can only have 1 in your deck, and only if your hero is Mechlovasan, which makes sense considering the story implications. Transform your hero, your weapon, and 4 Evos you have equipped into. Then currently, right now, this is probably the same for the thing that Cal has up, but it is barcoded. We know, just kind of gleaning from what it does and the backside of it, that it's probably just into the name of the card and then maybe some flavor text on how it works, like putting them either underneath as material or into your hero's soul, because that's technically where cards live if they're under your hero in their soul.
Yeah.
Which is also referenced by the back half, which is Mechlovasan, the Mechropotent, the Mechropotent.
The Mechropotent.
The Mechropotent.
Let us know how you pronounce it in the comments below.
Yeah,
anyway.
down there.
Yeah, spell it out
back to Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Throwback to Magic the Gathering days when I called it Necropotence.
It's easily confused because there is a necropolis. That's how you say the thing where the necro is going on.
You don't say necropolis?
Necropolis. No, necropolis. That's RIPD.
Wow. Anyway.
So Mechlovasan, the Mechropotent, he is a buckle in. He's a shadow mechanologist demi-hero equipment -Evo.
Brilliant.
So he's quite a few things. He's very established and very he has 6 attack, 6 block with battle worn, 3 intellect, and his health is star, so that just means whatever your health is when you transform into him, it stays the same. His health is your current health as you transform. He has action for 3 resources, banish 2 cards from your soul. That's both the cost. You can attack. So again, that's for 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's already pretty good. It is followed up by whenever this attacks a hero, they discard a card. So also really good. Just getting them to discard right away before they have a chance to block even. Doesn't have to hit, just on attack.
Yeah.
Your Mechanologist attack action cards get go again as well.
Sure.
So if you're not boosting, then they still get go again, or you don't have to boost, which actually is kind of relevant if you're getting into the late game and you don't want to boost, but you still want wide enough turns.
There's a lot of the big chungus attacks that we'll talk about today that also don't have boost either.
Exactly. Yeah. So giving those go again later on is absolutely absurd, especially with some of the combos that can, when you transform into this, as certain things. We'll get to it. Carry on, Bill.
This has one final line of text. This counts as having 4 Evos equipped, which is nice considering you lose all of your equipment, and there are multiple cards in the Mechlovasan deck that care about the number of Evos that you have equipped. So the fact that you turn into this big bad doesn't necessarily mean that those cards just immediately get horrible, which is kind of a nice thing, considering the hoops you have to jump through to get into this battle suit.
There is a cycle of cards which do appear on my list which do care about having 4 Evos equipped, and the fact that this says that gives you all of the good stuff that you get from those cards later. So we'll check we'll check that out in a bit. But yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. But look, there's still I feel like there's an unknown factor with this soul thing, because it says attack, banish 2 cards from soul. I'm assuming then that the barcode there'll be some form of errata, or Josh Scott will let us all know that if something goes under a hero, it means the soul, perhaps, right?
It's probably the barcode bit.
It kind of does already, as far as I'm aware, just from a rules perspective. If something goes under your hero in any capacity, it counts as being in your soul. So like, for example, this actually came up with the recent set with Levia, the Redeemed. When you transform into Levia the Redeemed, her original hero card actually goes under the other hero card, so it counts as being in your soul. So technically, if somebody was attacking you with like a soul reaping or anything like that, you would have a card in your soul for those purposes.
Okay.
So Yeah, it will probably say the remainder of the text under the barcode probably says something like put the transform cards into your soul or something like that. That's my best guess.
Or maybe if the transform mechanic is just, anything that's being used for the transform mechanic is then classed as being in your soul, perhaps going forward. But I like.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a pretty long rules reprise for this set specifically. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, but I like the premise of the fact that multiple heroes can have souls, because it then opens up this design space where each hero in the future could have like a second stage boss mode, right? Azalea could then turn into Azalea whatever, and she'll have cards in her soul and do things, which I think is great. I think is great. Rather than just printing a Starvo, you print this, and you have to get to that stage before you can actually be doing broken stuff.
And then we're just playing Yu-Gi-Oh, where you just have a side deck of 10 demi heroes instead of your synchros and tuners. You just have your demi heroes.
Well, I mean, this is right now. This literally is Xyz summoning. For all my Yu-Gi-Oh nerds out there, this is like de facto Xyz summoning, except it also has a cost. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, it is very Yu-Gi-Oh! The fact it says Shadow Mechanologist Demi Hero Equipment Evo.
That's what I was saying. Like, this card does not have enough types, clearly. Like, needs more.
It reminds me very much of one of the best card names in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is my final note about Yu-Gi-Oh! For the rest of this episode. Probably. I don't know if I can actually agree to that. But Interplanetary Purpley Thorny Dragon. Look it out.
So I have a couple things I want to note about Mechlovasan, the Mechropotent. So the first things first, since you have no more equipment equipped, he has Arcane Barrier 0, so get absolutely wrecked by all wizards and runeblades. Other things to note, if something would destroy an equipment and it destroys Mechlovasan, the player playing Mechlovasan dies. They lose.
Loses the game.
Yep. This has been 100% confirmed by Joshua Scott. That's what happens. So if someone buckles your Teklovasan, the Mechropotent, or what's the other one that blows up equipment that Guardians have? It's the one with the you know what I'm
Mangle.
Mangle, yeah.
Yeah, Mangle. Yep.
Yeah, so someone can mangle Mechlovasan and he
I think they have to have a certain number of minus counters on it to do it.
They just need one minus one
at all. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Which makes it pretty not a great prospect to block with this in a Guardian matchup where they might have mangle or buckle or something similar. Exposed to the elements also potentially kills this if it's late enough.
That's hilarious.
Which is funny. Because there isn't a hero that can legally play it currently.
Yeah, and I would also like to note the shadow part of this is mostly just flavor. There are some edge case mechanics, but this doesn't mean you can play shadow cards in your deck because you build the deck at that construction and not when he turns into Mechlovasan. So it's not like you can run your Ghostly Visit or something like that.
Yeah. So you're not a shadow hero for deck construction purposes.
Yeah. But if someone has one of those corner case cards where like, if your opponent has a shadow hero, get this bonus effect. Well, then here you go. You get the bonus effect because he's a shadow hero.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. I do want to say one final thing, at least for me on this. There were some people that were joking around about transforming into Mechlovasan, which is what I'm just going to call him. His name is Mechlovasan.
Yeah, Mechlovasan.
Transforming into Mechlovasan, and then immediately playing Cash Out, which allows you to destroy any number of items or equipment you control to gain that many silver tokens.
Kill yourself.
Just kill yourself by selling all of your stuff, including you. And as sort of flavor judged this as not dying to blood debt, but just dying to regular debt. And to which I responded, selling your heart to pay for your heart surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like USA healthcare in general, really.
As the only American here, can confirm, will agree.
Can confirm. Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, cannot disagree.
What's just side tangent? What's Canadian healthcare? Is it free?
Yeah.
It is. Oh, okay.
You could. There are like elective things that like if you want an elective surgery, you have to pay for it. And like if you go to a walk-in, you just have to wait in line. It's sort of based on how severe your thing is. If it's more severe, then you're likely to get seen quicker. But yeah, if you have like a non-lethal broken bone or something, you're likely going to sit around for a while, waiting for a doctor to come see you.
Same here, really, by the looks of it. But yeah.
Cool. So
some weird interactions with this card, that's for sure.
So I have one more thing that's not. This is very, very in the spirit of the Living Legends podcast because we talk about all aspects of Flesh and Blood. So the artist of Mechlovasan is Billy Christian, who is Livia Prima's partner, and Billy Christian does a lot of amazing artwork. He has only a couple for Flesh and Blood so far. But he's done a ton for other card games like Magic and stuff. People will definitely recognize him. In fact, he did the art for my new commander deck that Az and I are playing, my Zethi. The art for Zethi. Anyway, my point is he did a post on Facebook talking about the art for this and the art direction. And I just kind of want to read what he said because I think it was really interesting. So this is Teklo, the Macropotent for Flesh and Blood, Bright Lights. Art directors Robbie Wen, Sam Yang, and MJ Fatizio. He says, I challenge myself using a type of lighting I've never done in the past, so it might look kind of different than the kind of image I would make. As for the design, I tried to steer away from Ultron or Iron Man, though it's hard to shake the feel with the red lights and all. Trying to come up with a more original shapes was a real struggle, and I felt like I used parts of my brain I've never used before. So I thought it was really interesting that he's obviously very cognizant of like, okay, this is going to end up looking like Ultron or Iron Man. I would want to try to make it look as different as I can. And I think that's really cool. And I like that kind of insight. Also, I think Billy's just a really great artist. So yeah.
I do want to say that I do see like the almost inspiration and the fact that he was aware that he like wanted to steer away from Ultron and Iron Man. You can see like some amount of things that are kind of not avoidable, like the fact that there's sort of a center thing in his chest, which makes it feel very Iron Man. Just like the fact that there are gauntlets and whatever. But yeah, it does still feel very much like its own thing. So I think he did succeed in that regard, even though that's kind of a tough thing to do with how just ubiquitous, especially Iron Man is. Even before we saw this card and they were revealing the like Teklo or like the, I forget what they're called, but the majestic ones, the like big bad Evos. As soon as we saw the head, people were like, "Oh, Iron Man!" That was the first thing out of everybody's mouths. So I think he did a good job.
Yeah, and I think one thing that it's not because there's a lot going on in the art. I think some of the pieces around him are just kind of like floating near him, and I think they probably like follow him around. Like he's got these floating shoulder things, and he's got these other floating things on the side. So I think it like. Out of context, out of this picture, he would probably look, pretty distinguishable between like Iron Man and because he'll have all this other like crap just floating around him. So,
definitely, yeah. He almost has like a field, like a magnetic field, going on.
Yeah, looks sick. I'm just looking at Billy Christian's art on air as well. He did the Karlak card from Dungeons and Dragons MTG set.
Yeah, for Flesh and Blood, he did Herald of He did the Ravages one for
yes, yeah. Sekhem Archangel of Ravagers. Yeah, I'm just looking at the art station now.
Yeah,
it's quality, good stuff.
Yeah, Billy and Livia are both excellent folks. So shout out to them.
Fully agreed.
Well, I can't wait to see this. Wait to see this get summoned. I don't know whether because we seen many Levia transformations like at a top level. I'm not sure if we have we?
I'm sure it happens. It's one of those things. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say the thing is with this one versus Levia lives in your inventory, which does make her much easier to get out if you do want to go down that path. I also feel like if you're playing Levia, you're just playing Levia Redeemed. If you're playing Mechlovasan, you're probably playing the Mechlovasan as well, but it's not going to be nearly as easy as it is for Levia. And I think that's something that people kind of have to keep in mind as well, because not only do you have to have the 4 Evos, you also have to draw into this after you've put out the 4 Evos.
And it costs 6. So you need to draw this and like
6.
2 blues. Like you need specific stuff to make this happen.
Yeah. this is a significant investment. Now, is the payoff worth it? I think so. But it's just about if you can get to that point. That's the real actual sticking point of this card is whether or not you can get there.
I hate to keep referencing other games, but I feel this might be like your Gisela and Bruna meld situation where like when you get it, it's like awesome and you have this big old thing that's just gonna kill your opponent, but like good luck. Because like I literally have that in one of my commander decks, and I pulled it out at a game nights at Prof's place, and literally the first thing Prof said to me is like, "Have you ever even melded that?" And I was like, "Nope, not a single time." So I think it's gonna be.
I think this is probably what I kind of mentioned earlier. Was like you're probably going to be seeing the front half of this card much more frequently than the back half. I think this will likely be pitched or blocked with like I want to say like high 70, 80, 90% of the time even. But the times that this is landed against you, I think you kind of just lose the game. I think this gives you a significant advantage if you land it.
I don't want to spend too much more time on Mechlovasan, but this is something we're talking about in the preamble here, and that is I think it's hilarious that Mechlovasan has less intellect in the robot form than when he was a human. He gets dumber when he turns into a robot, which I think is hilarious.
We flavor judged that into that he gets connected to the entire internet as a whole, so he has to read all of Facebook and Reddit and 4chan.
Yeah, he just gets dumber.
So he just gets he gets a full like 25% stupider because he just has to know all of this stuff about like MLMs and conspiracy theories.
The the brain can't handle the soup of the internet. I can't even say that word. How did you say the word wrong earlier? Mecropotent. How did you say it?
Yeah, I said macropotent.
That's it.
And then mecropotent is probably how a lot of people are gonna say it. But also like omnipotent, macrompotent.
Macrompotent. That's what he's got. He's got crumpets too.
He's crumping. Okay, anyway, before this gets too far off track, we are here for a reason today, folks. And that is to talk about the cards that we've picked as our top 5 from this set. I will throw it over to Az to start, as he's the leader, he's the host of this week. But I just wanted to grab the reins a bit while they were in front of me.
Exactly. Yeah, we need someone to sort of reel us back in, because otherwise we just end up in deep doo doo. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, so these are 5 cards that we've picked from whatever standpoint we deem necessary. It's not top 5 cards you need to include in your decks to win and all this. It's just cards that we like for whatever reason, and I'm going to start with something that was only recently introduced as a card type, both in this set and the Round the Table product as well, and that is cards that just say something block, like a mechanologist block or a bard block, etc. In this case, obviously, this is Steel Street Enforcement. So this is a mechanologist block. It's a blue pitch. It blocks for 1. But while this is defending, if it gets plus what X's number of Evos you have equipped. So I imagine this is just a nice little card that you access blue pitch for at the start of the game, but then when you've assembled your suit and your Evos, it's then blocking for potentially 4 or 5 after you've got the value for the blue pitch early on. So I think that's quite cool. And I just like the fact, these top 5s, whenever Az gets a top 5, he likes to bring in stuff that hasn't happened before, and this is one of those things that hasn't happened before. I don't know whether blocks as a card type are going to be popular or whether they're going to be utilized, but I just think it's cool that there is a new card type, and it just goes to show that FAB are always expanding their design space, thanks to Brian being in the team and all this. So yeah, I like it. Don't know what you guys think of block cards, whether they're going to be any good or not, but
so I've played with block cards before because I played several hours with Round the Table product, and I will say, at least in Ultimate Pit Fight, it was pretty easy to get all of your Evos equipped, just because the game lasts long enough. So, like this card, I think in Round the Table or in UPF in particular is really, really good. Also, I want to note a couple things about the block mechanic just in general, or the block card type mechanic just in general. First things first, don't arsenal this because you cannot block with it from arsenal. It is not a defense reaction. If you arsenal this, you are stuck with it in your arsenal until it gets destroyed or something.
Very true.
Like, so
Yeah.
except for the ninja one you can play from your arsenal, but it specifically says it on the card. It has a mechanic on it that says you can play this from your arsenal, or you can block this from your
Ambush,
arsenal.
isn't it? Ambush or something.
Yeah,
That's funny too, because I was thinking like, oh well, what if you had Art of War? Art of War only cares about attack attack action cards.
Yeah,
which this extremely is not.
So it also makes my Codex of Inertia, me thinking as an assassin player, even more hilarious, because if you Codex of Inertia a block card into their arsenal, well, get wrecked.
Ooh, damn, yeah. So I'll go back on what I said. This is not on my top 5.
Well,
anyway,
here's another cool thing though. It's not a defense reaction, so it doesn't count as a defense reaction for things that care about defense reactions. So, for example, like if your opponent's attacking with a Command and Conquer, you can block with this, and it'll get the full 5 block because it's not a D react; it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for any other thing that cares about D react. So, yeah, it's weird, but it's kind of a cool little thing I think they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think it's nice to, even though this is obviously a list video, I think it's nice to touch on these mechanics and inform people of how you can use this and how you shouldn't use this as well, because it is a new card type. So hence why that's one of the reasons I include it in the list, because it's new and people need to know how it works. So that's Absolutely. The Steel Enforcement. I can't read it now. Yeah, it is Steel Street Enforcement. Yeah, I'll throw it over to whoever wants to grab the baton for their first card.
I will go next just because in OBS order it is clockwise. I think it's not like that in the other thing.
Perfect. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. So my first card is, well, I'll just pick this one because it's up already. I want to preface this by saying that I did not include either assassin card in my top 5 here because I feel like that was obvious, and that would have made my top 5 list basically into a top 3, and then it just kind of like ruined the whole thing. So keep in mind as I go over my top 5 that my 2 favorite cards for the set are the assassin cards. So like those would actually be my number 1 and number 2, but we've already talked about them in other episodes too. So anyway.
I would also like to interject very, very quickly and say that spoiler cards that were given to us as well are very, very cool, and very much enjoyed making videos and stuff on that as well. So thanks LSS for giving me a card with a bike on it, which is interesting, sort of throwback to my D&D character. I'm not sure whether that's a deep cut that they knew that I was playing a character that had a motorbike, but if it was, I love you guys. Brilliant job.
I do know that Robbie at least watched some of the first episode, though your bike didn't come up in that episode. So anyway,
no, moving on.
With all that said, my first card is actually a common card. It is a card called Expedite. Well, it's 2 cards actually. So it's Expedite and Medex, and I think these are basically the same card, just kind of like different cycle. They just have the whole like cost power variant. So what Expedite is, it's a 0 cost mechanologist attack action. It attacks for 3 and blocks for 3 for the red version, and then it scales down 2 and 1 for yellow and blue. It has boost, and it says when this hits, you may put an item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand into the arena. And before I talk about that effect and why I love it, Medex is literally the exact same thing, but it is cost and power scaled up by 1. So it costs 1 to play, and then it attacks for 4, 3, and 2. Same exact effect, boost when it hits. You may put an item with cost 1 or 0 from your hand into the arena. I like Medex probably a little bit more just because it attacks for 4 and therefore is much more likely to hit. And I really, really love this effect. When it hits, you can put any item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand into the arena. Doesn't have to be a mech item, so you can drop a potion if you are playing a weird kind of like off meta kilter style deck. You can drop an amulet, you can drop anything, any item with cost 0 or 1, which I think is super, super cool. And also it just kind of lets you turbo out a card for free. So even in like, limited, even in like some sort of constructed deck, maybe you're playing a new dash deck that really cares about items, it really like just lets you drop the item for free, which is sweet because most of the items don't have go again. And the ones that do have go again in the set with the crank mechanic, this kind of like you can do some stuff. So I really like these cards, and the fact that they're common is really awesome for limited. And yeah, I like them. So that's my first.
Yeah,
pick.
I think that's a good point actually, because as you say, most items don't have go again, so at least you can maybe do an attack and then follow up with like one of these cards, and then still drop an item from your hand into the arena, so you don't have to waste your turn or action point on doing that.
Yeah,
because they won't. So a lot of them don't have go again. So yeah, that's a good point as well. Yeah,
and these both have boost, so like they have go again. So basically, you can like Medex. You get your boost, and then if it hits, then you can play your Crazy Brew for free, and then immediately activate your Crazy Brew and do stuff. So, or whatever. So yeah, I like these cards, both for constructed and for limited. So
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. So then I guess that runs straight over to me, and I do mean runs because my first card that I want to talk about today is Twin Drive, which is going to be one of 5 Majestics that I talk about today. The Majestics in this set are just so wacky and wild that I just picked 5 of them. But yeah, Twin Drive is a Majestic Mechanologist attack action. It costs 2 pitches for 1, blocks for 3, and attacks for 5. And I really wanted to highlight this one because it enables a strategy that I really love, and also is the first, I think, instance, actually not really the first instance, of having 2 like sort of sequential lines of text that are the same. And with that being said, it is because this says boost and then line break boost, which allows you to boost 2 separate times. Something extremely important to note for everybody out there listening who might not know this interaction: multiple instances of go again do not stack. So if you boost twice and this has go again twice, you only get 1 attack action, or you only get 1 action point. The relevant point of this card is that it leads in extremely nicely into a maximum velocity. This is 2 of the 3 boosts that you need in order to attack with a maximum velocity. And the fact that it costs 2 is much less important than needing 2 separate cards, which you normally do. You need 3 individual cards in order to attack with a max velocity. This cuts out 50% of the cards that you need, which is actually quite nice. I guess a third of the cards that you need.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's really cool. Technically, the first instance of card text like this is Chain Lightning, or not Chain Lightning, Forked Lightning.
Yeah, Forked Lightning.
Yeah, they errated it so that it says deal 2 twice. But I still think that it's really cool. The art is phenomenal. If you're not seeing this on YouTube, the art is so colorful and like full of energy. It's awesome. Same with a lot of
the art is. The art is very similar to Max Velocity as well. It's just this person just running towards the camera,
full kilter.
I didn't
literally the Flash.
I mean, okay. I'm gonna just couple things about just the art. First of all, I really love that you can go 0 to 60 into Twin Drive, and it looks like the same guy just running closer. And
you go 0 to 60 Twin Drive, max velocity.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just consistently getting closer.
And then max velocity, I think, is really interesting because it shows how either the world of Wraith has changed, narratively, or just the style of Flesh and Blood has changed for metrics, because it's like this very steampunky dude with like leather straps and like a rocket jet on his backpack. And the guy from Twin Drive, I mean, he looks like Silver Samurai or something. He's just like an all silver, tech armor with lightsabers and a jetpack or whatever on his back.
Yeah, like to reference back to even just the flavor text on max velocity, that really does give you an idea of what the art looks like. I won't read the whole thing, but it's zoom, zip, kazam. Ever wanted to show old Joey what for? Like it's that style of like retrofuturism, and this is just straight up, like you said, Cal. This is just Silver Samurai. This is like the Flash. This is very separate.
Yeah, this is cyberpunk, like very much so.
Yeah. Just a quick side tangent before we go on to our second card of our list. Do we know in the lore? Do we know the time period that this is in? Because it looks extremely futuristic in regards to what we've seen before in Mechanologist.
They have been putting out a bunch of lore articles. I've read almost all of them. They're really good. They're really interesting. There is one that kind of talks about the evolution of metrics, and it's like the age of Steam and then like the age of something else. So like I think what they're doing here is they're giving lore reasons as to why stuff looks like old-timey and then why stuff looks way more like future, cyberpunk style. And I think what they're doing is like technology is growing at such a rate where it can all exist in the same lifetime, I think is what they're kind of getting at here. Because Mechlovasan as a character exists in both of these time frames. I'm not going to spoil it. Go listen, go watch, or go read the articles. Mechlovasan goes through some stuff.
I see.
Yeah, he pulls a Walt Disney. I'm just going to say that. If you
Brilliant.
understand what I'm kind of referencing.
Yeah. I mean, I've read it, but I just wanted to get your sort of thoughts on it because I didn't really understand what was going on with regards to the time frame. But if anyone's got any more knowledge, let us know.
It's in the story called The Dynamic Man, and I'm not going to read any of it. I'm just going to say I'm going to read the couple titles of the paragraphs. One of them is called The Age of Steam. And then there's the next one called The Age of Dynamism. So like it talks about how they go from like clockwork steam stuff to more like cybernetic stuff. So
yeah. And I guess it kind of makes sense because like you still have like the Cogworks Steam Evo set, and then you have like the other Evo sets all existing in the same thing. So I guess it's just all the technologies intertwined with each other.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
I think it's like just like the technology is advancing at such a rate that it's just kind of out of control.
All exists at the same time. Cool. So that's back to me then, is it? Back to me.
Yep.
And I'm going to go with an art pick.
I knew it.
So I'm going to go with art pick, and there was two cards here, one for thirst reasons and one for beauty. Both for beauty reasons, I would say. So the first one is Gas Up, which I think is just absolutely sexy as hell. Let's be honest. So it's just this woman in sort of like leather, looks like black sort of leather, just outside of a gas station. In a great little pose there. So I just absolutely love this one. I haven't seen Sebastian Giacobino. I'm not sure whether they've done any art for Flesh and Blood before. But I need to check it out if they've done some more because that looks awesome.
This also has a cute little doggy with a red scarf.
It does indeed in the foreground.
Yeah,
extremely important.
So yeah, it's just an art pick for that one, and then the second art pick is another great card called Sonata Phantasmia, which I just absolutely love the art of this. It's just this is pure playmat worthy. The vibrant colours on this, the fact that it looks like they're in is it Ariathiel that they're in there? Or is this beyond that, perhaps? But
we don't really know, but I'm pretty sure that this is Arathiel or something like that.
Yeah, I just love that whole sort of realm hopper, dimensional traveling between different planes of existence and the world behind the world sort of theme. And obviously you can see Viscerai here with some 3 people in the foreground on this floating island. Reminds me kind of like Zendikar. I love these sort of art landscape styles that are just like floating rocks because there's been like a interdimensional rift that's torn it apart or whatever. Just love the art in this. Very vibrant. And I mean, I could read out the card, but I chose it because of art style. So if you're watching this, appreciate it. But that's Phantasmia, as well as Gas Up.
It's the same artist for the Sonata Phantasmia as Sonata Arcanix, Saad Irfan. Mm-hmm. So if you're just listening to it, imagine that style of art, but with like what I said, lots of floaty rocks and a big old vortex spinning thingy. Yeah. In the middle. Yeah.
Just looks sick. Obviously future picks of mine will actually be relevant, but yeah, I just thought I'd get those out of the way first because they're just cool things that I like the art on. If anyone's got a pick like that, we could obviously jump to that one. But if it's more of like an aesthetic one, but
mine are all just kind of like mechanical picks. But I do want to say when Az like kind of submitted his list and Gas Up was on there, I knew exactly why it was on there. I'm just putting that out there. Like I knew literally exactly. I'm like, yep, yep.
Exactly. People know at this point that there's a degenerate in the group, and that's okay.
I mean, I'm sitting here with a bunch of like anime figures in the background, so it's not like you're by yourself. So
exactly.
Anyway,
awesome.
Am I next? I think I'm next.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick a card that I think is both really powerful and really cool, and it reminds me of some of my favorite things in other card games. So my next pick is a card called Fabricate. Also one of my favorite cards in Magic. I have a mirrored in Japanese Fabricate. Anyway, Fabricate is a mechanologist instant. It costs 0, so it's a 0-drop instant that is modal. Oh, so you're speaking my language already. 0-drop instant that you can choose 2 of the effects. So it says choose 2. Equip a base equipment with Proto in its name from your inventory. Or Evo permanents you control get +1 defense this turn. Or put this under an Evo permanent you control. Or you may banish an Evo from your hand. If you do, draw a card. So I love this card. This card's super sweet. This is one of the few ways, maybe the only way, to actually get a Evo or a Proto piece of equipment back after it's already been destroyed. So if somehow someone has destroyed one of like your Evo pieces or something like that, and you still have a bunch of Evo cards in your deck, and you're like, oh crap, these are useless. Well, Fabricate is a way to like get your Evo head back, and then or get your Proto head back, and then so you can play your Evo piece again, which I think is really cool. I think something like this is kind of needed for that kind of deck. I love that it kind of pumps up your stuff by 1 for blocking. I'm not entirely sure how you're going to use like put this under the Evo permanent. I guess some of the Evo cards are like, banish a card under this to do some sort of effect.
I think so, yeah.
And then obviously banishing an Evo from your hand and drawing a card is like actually insane with Mechlovasan, because Mechlovasan can play Evos at instant speed from banish. So this card is like awesome. I think this card's like really good. And I think this is kind of like, to me, this is just a windmill slam dunk in Mechlovasan deck. And also just, I really love modal cards like this. So this card is like everything that I really, really love in cards. They need to, Brian Gottlieb, I know you're not watching this, but if you are for some reason and you have this on in the background, I'm talking to you directly now. Please make an assassin card that is modal. I want a modal assassin card. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, that's my pick.
Don't give it to him. Don't give it to him.
No,
so,
you know what
the modes will be.
You know what he should do? He should print an attack action that's just a 0 for 3 that says choose 2, and then it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4. No other text.
I like it.
I'm going to choose 2 and 4 this time.
I'm going to go.
What does that do? Your turn.
I'm going to go odds. Just 1
just
and
count
3.
to 4.
All right. Anyway, yeah, I really like Fabricate. It's a sweet card.
No, I think it's really cool too. I think that number 4, the fourth mode, is going to be done pretty much every time you want to play this card. But I guess you won't always have an Evo to discard or banish, I suppose. So sometimes you might see the others, but I think that's going to be like largely the sort of the replacement is what you're going to want to do.
It's so good. Like you have your Fabricate in your arsenal, and then in your next turn you have your hand, and you're like, well, I can't really play this Evo now, so you can just like basically just swap it for another card and then cash it in later at instant speed. It's just so good. Yeah.
And like very important thing to note as well, because like with Art of War, it's banish 1 to draw 2, which you might look at this and say, oh, well, why isn't it 2 cards? Art of War costs 1. This costs 0. That is a huge difference.
Yeah, 0 drop.
0 drop. Like it is big that it doesn't cost anything to play. So anyway, yeah, I really like that card as a pick. I have a card that technically also costs 0 sometimes. You
Okay.
don't want this to cost 0 though, because I think that this card is crazy. This is going to be a card that I think is very positioned to be like the game ender in Max decks. I think that Max will be able to play this for X equals a lot, like quite a bit. But anyway, this is Moonshot, which is a Mechanologist attack action. It's another Majestic. Pitches for 2. It's a yellow. It has cost XX. It attacks for 3 and blocks for 3. But it only kind of attacks for 3 because it also says, play this only if you've boosted this turn. As an additional cost to play this, destroy X hyperdrivers you control. When this attacks, it gets +3 for each hyperdriver destroyed this way, and then if it has 10 or more attack, it gains overpower. So obviously, for those of you who are less familiar with just X costs in general, if you want to destroy 3 hyperdrivers, you'll have to pay a total of 6 to play this card.
Yeah.
You'll have to pay 3 into each of the X costs, so that equals 6. Then you get to destroy 3 hyperdrivers, but then if you do that, this gets +9, which would put it at 12 with overpower thanks to its effect.
Pretty sweet.
I think that is remarkably doable in the Max deck. I think that you are going to have a lot of options to have a lot of resources. There's actually a card on, I believe it's on my honorable mentions, and there's another card that's on Hell's honorable mentions that make this unbelievably easy to do, to pay 6 into something. But yeah, I think that this is just like, I think that from what I've seen, you're probably going to be kind of swimming in hyperdrivers. You'll have to choose what you want to sort of transition them into. But I think in the Max deck, this is your max velocity. This is I'm going to attack you for a lot card. And I think it does it very well.
I think it's like child's play to do 2. Like I think Max by himself is pretty easy to do 2. To do 2 hyperdrivers, and so like this is frequently just a 4 for 9, which is kind of crazy. Like
that's an insane rate. That's a Guardian card. That's better than a Guardian card.
Yeah,
like that's really strong. Even just a 4 for 9, and then if you do 3, which I don't think is going to be difficult for Max. This is a 6 for 12, which is. Yeah. Insane.
Overpower, 6 or 12 overpower.
And overpower. Yeah. So like I think this card is really strong. This is like an abject game ender in Max. And also it has Max on a motorcycle, which I know Az likes. So
absolutely. Yeah, I love motorcycles. Cheers LSS yet again. But if you think about the front end of this, play it when you've boosted this turn as additional cost to play, etc. When you boost, the hyperdrivers that you've already laid out previously are all going to trigger, and you're all going to remove a steam counter from each of them, and then gain a bunch of resources that you can then play with after this, and then you can destroy all the. So it's that front end gives you all those resources to then use as well, which I think is awesome.
Yep. Yeah. I think the thing that I could be wrong when the deck actually comes together, but just from looking at all of the pieces, it kind of feels like Max is going to be swimming in like either like resources, like either resources, the actual like capital R resources, or just hyperdrivers. And you kind of just need something to do with them. I don't know that there's that many payoffs, but this is one of those payoffs. This is something that you use both your capital R resources and your resources on board, being your hyperdrivers, to be able to translate those into gigantic damage into your opponent. That only becomes more potent as the game goes on. Like Az said, you play something with boost, you play a 0 to 60, or any of the setup cards that we've seen. Honestly, you already mentioned Gas Up. Gas Up works with this card. It also gives it plus, or no, it doesn't have boost, so it doesn't give it +4, but it gives you another hyperdriver at least.
Yeah. But you start the chain with a card that boosts, and then that card obviously will give you go again, and then spew up all these resources that you then play into the Moonshot, and then you sacrifice all the hyperdrivers, and then it just attacks for God knows how much. So I think it's perfect.
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody attacks for 15 or 18 with this card at least one time.
Yeah.
It is definitely magical Christmas land to maybe go above 12. I think 12 is probably what you're going to be seeing this barreling down at you for, but even that 12 is a huge number. Like in Flesh and Blood, outside of Guardian, outside of Brute, even like 12 is gigantic. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that's my second pick.
Yeah, I think this is also a card that's just really good in like limited. I think this is like one of the Majestics that you'll be very, very happy to draft, or just in your crack shuffle play, be like, "Ooh, cool! I'm just gonna clap you for a crap load,
moonshot someone." I'm just gonna moony you.
And
here we go. I'm gonna moon you again. The waning moon all over again. I'm gonna moon you for 12 this time. Then not for 3.
I was trying to.
God, can you imagine Icelander?
Also, I'd just like to point out who at LSS really likes hearts, because obviously this is a reference to shooting the moon in hearts. But anyway,
awesome. Back to me, is it?
Yeah. What's your number 3 now?
Cool. So this is a Majestic playset for probably the best Evos, arguably for the Mechlovasan morph Mechlovasan situation, and that's the Evo Steel Soul series. So again, sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Oh, I've got the Evo Steel Soul thingy, which does this. But yeah, the one that I want to point out. Well, I could probably read them all out, but it's a lot. But the one I wanted to point out was Evo Steel Soul Memory. So this is the blue pitch, 4 cost, 3 block, Mechanogen equipment dash Evo base head. So obviously, if you had a base head equipped, you can transform it into this and then equip this. And then when this transforms from or into an Evo of a different name, your hero gets +1 end of turn. If that Evo is a hero, which Mechlovasan is, it will trigger twice instead, which I think is pretty ridiculous because his bloody intellect will go up to 5 if you do this.
So for one turn, he's not dumber from reading Reddit and 4chan. For one turn, he's a little bit smarter. He's like, I actually learned some stuff, and then the next turn, he's like, oh, what have I done? What did I get into?
It's like, you feel like you're enlightened by taking all this garbage information, and then you realize it's not valuable. So
it's like he watched a bunch of TikToks on like life hacks, and he's like, these are so good, they're so smart, I could use them in everything. And then the next day, he's like, they're all useless. No. What have I done?
Yeah. He tried like hot gluing 3 pencils together, and he's like, "What am I doing?
What am I doing? Oh my god!" Just got these perpetual cat videos in his subconscious.
Can't focus on anything else.
But
I'm just now imagining Teklovasan, like not Teklovasan, but like Mechlovasan in his backyard making like a terrarium out of like a hollowed out like liter of like A&W or something.
Yeah. something to do with concrete, because it's always concrete. Yeah. He's like pouring concrete into a kiddie pool, and he's like, "What am I doing?
What am I doing here?"
Anyway,
and that's when he goes back down to 3 intellect. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, they're all pretty good. Obviously, the chess piece, when it transforms, if you're transforming into Mechlovasan, which is what I'm referring to this doing, you get 6 resources, which then allows you to play cards that are on my list later on for free, basically, with Go Again, which is ridiculous because of Mechlovasan. The arms will give you recursion, so you get 6 attacks back from your graveyard in your deck, 5th from the top. And if that Evo is a hero, instead triggers twice, so you get your big smashy attacks back. And then the legs will give you 2 action points when if you're equipping it to Mechlovasan.
So
which I don't know.
He can attack. So he can use those to attack. Yeah.
Yep. Like something that I mentioned, because I just like had completely spaced out on how the mechanics worked. For this, because kind of like we were mentioning even earlier in the podcast, there are 3 distinct playstyles that are being released in this. So it's all mechanologist cards, but a lot of them just do very separate things. So it's kind of hard to keep them all separate, or I guess all categorized effectively. But for all of the Evo Steel Soul cards, if Magical Christmas Land, I know, but that's where I live. if you have all 4 of the Evo Steel Souls equipped, they all trigger twice, and you get 2 intellect, 6 resources, 2 6 attack action cards from your graveyard back into the top 5 of your deck, and 2 action points. And the 2 action points plus the 6 resources allows you to attack with Mechlovasan twice, which is attacking for 12 and discarding 2 cards from your opponent's hand.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think at that point you've just lost. If they assemble a Mechlovasan with Evo Steel Soul set, you have lost the game, I reckon.
Yeah. Realistically, though, actually all you would need for that is just the chest and the feet. The other 2 can just be other Evos. You would still get the 2 action points and the 6. But I mean, then you don't get 2 intellect, which he very desperately needs.
He becomes dated all, which is funny. Anyway, I lost my train of thought, but
you were thinking of Datadol and trying to get some more jokes about the 3 intellect in there. He lost his train of thought.
We've figured out the canonical reason for why Datadol is dumber than other heroes, because of cat videos and Facebook.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's exactly,
too much information.
I do want to know. Has to do with Brian Gottlieb. Hey, shout out to Brian again. He's been saying a few times, like on Twitter, he's like, he doesn't feel like people are ready for the amount of variants that's coming up in Flesh and Blood, or that he's been talking about variants in Flesh and Blood basically. And when I see stuff like this with Mechlovasan and the magical Christmas land that Bill's talking about, I'm like, well, that's the hell of some variants right there. I mean,
yep,
yeah. But to be fair, so here's the thing. This is really interesting. I don't know if this is their intent. We can talk about this when Brian is on the podcast. This just occurred to me. But a lot of card games have these really, really big swingy moments that are really, really exciting. You built up to it's like a kind of like a Timmy moment, right? Like you built up to this really awesome thing that you're going to do. You play your Craterhoof Behemoth, or you mill your opponent's entire deck, or whatever the hell you're doing, and you do your big cool thing. And Flesh and Blood doesn't really have that. It does sometimes here and there. I mean, you can roll your dice with KO and attack your opponent for 20 or whatever. But a lot of heroes don't. They're just like nickel and dime you, attack you for 6, chip 1 damage here, chip 1 damage, block. I've done a lot of coverage. I've seen it at the top levels. You don't really have these moments. But with this kind of design, it kind of feels like they want those really exciting moments more. Because that's what this is. Like this is like, as the kids say, poggers. Kids still say poggers. This is poggers.
It's poggers.
I mean, I do, but I'm not a kids anymore. So, I don't know. I was kind of mentioning this one time. Shout out again to the interview that I had with Felix and Shay over at the IP2 podcast. Who, by the way, if you're listening to this, I got your letter that you gave to Grant, and thank you so much to both of you. It was just like a really heartfelt letter about like thanking me for spending time with them. They were lovely. Once again, if you don't know who the IP2 podcast are, please go check them out. They're really, really nice. They're incredibly insightful. But yeah, when I was talking with them, one of the things that came up was the difference in different card games, and how like Flesh and Blood has, like you were saying, like nickel and diming moments where you're looking for sort of percentages and opportunities that your opponent gives you, either like willingly or unwillingly. If they trip up on something, if they roll a 1 on their scabskin leathers, that's not as relevant, because if they roll a 1 on their scabskin leathers, it's really hard for you to not win the game after that. But I digress. But yeah, so this does feel very much, again, like even if you're able to cast Singularity, I think even without this magical Christmas land of having the 2 Evo Steel Soul pieces that we were talking about, even without the 4 that you were looking at previously, I still think that this is such a huge, like, oh my God moment, where you get this guy, he's gigantic, he punches your opponent and strips resources from them immediately. Like, this is a big event. This is the Singularity. So yeah, I think it's really, really cool. I think it is something that Flesh and Blood could use. I'm kind of tending towards hoping that they keep it sort of more to story events like they are here, like with Singularity being its own very influential moment and on a singular one of card. instead of this being like the thing where they're just trying to slam in as many oh my god moments as possible.
Yeah, but I absolutely love the design space, so that they are tying it to the hero's soul. So it just then also gives you the ability to make your fan favorite characters then sort of ascend into a different version of themselves. So for the people that care about character development and character story and arcs and all this, can see their favorite heroes go through a journey, which I also think is very good for the game in general as well. So I have just posted a weird card in the chat, which I'm not sure if it has been spoiled. I think it was just spoiled via a box break, which was in there.
Yeah, I think at this point, all spoilers that were given out have gone out. I think we're officially past that now that the box breaks are happening. So there were just, I think, 3 things as of when we started recording that still hadn't been revealed. One of them was, by the way, Teklo Foundry Heart is one of the legendaries in the set. It is being reprinted. There is a mechanologist, like a main set mechanologist Majestic that hasn't been spoiled yet. And then there's this one. And since Az is the one that posted it, Az, why don't you tell us what it does?
Yeah, it looks like it's been taken. The picture's been taken on a toaster, but I will try and read it out anyway.
I don't have from my LG Smart Toaster.
Actually, you know what? Maybe I could pull up an image for this. Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah. Shout out to my Discord. They're just on the ball with all these things, just posting images in there, even though they haven't even been released yet. But whenever, so this is called Phantom Tidemore. Absolutely love the art on this as well. Cannot see what the artist is because it's a bit of a blurry image, but it's a illusionist instant aura, blue pitch, costs nothing to play. And it says, whenever an illusionist card you control is destroyed, put a +1/+1 counter on this, or just +1 counter, I should say. And then it has Phantasm. Obviously, when you block with a 6 or more power attack, it gets destroyed. And it has Ward 1. So if your hero be dealt damage, destroy this to prevent 1 of that damage. So I imagine you turn this into an attack with something.
Yep. So you turn it into an attack
Luminaris.
with any like a prism stuff, right? And then it gets +1 additional attack for each counter. So the counters that Az was talking about are specifically +1 attack counters.
That's right.
Which, and like relevantly, that actually buffs if you're using like Iris of Reality. That actually makes it like a really big weapon potentially, because it's base of 4. And then each +1 just makes it even bigger past that. Like this could be gigantic. My first thought was that this would be really good if it triggered off of spectral shields, and I thought that it did, but I've gotten confirmation from the judge community already, because people just jumped on this card as soon as it got posted, that tokens are not currently classified as cards under the current comprehensive rules.
I wonder if that's going to change, because I heard that the tokens that Max makes count, like for
as cards.
If I had to, like if you put them under something, like if you put them under Nitromechanoid, they do still stay there. They are real. Because we did get confirmation from Joshua Scott on that, right? I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah. So I think if they make that change,
Josh said they're going to be making a change to make that work. So.
So I think if they make that change, they kind of have to make the change to make spectral shields count for this, which if that's the case, this card's kind of crazy.
This also has ward. This also has ward, so you have to be careful by not popping this too.
If it didn't have ward.
It is very fragile, but like I would compare this at least most accurately to like Shimmers of Silver. It's Shimmers is a little bit different. Obviously, it's easier to make it so that the counters don't just get immediately blown out if they take care of Shimmers by just putting the counters on something else. But like, I still think that this is kind of crazy, especially like in response to. I guess no, because if you do it in response to your opponent attacking, then they would still hit. The ward would still trigger. So unless you have enough ward to take care of the rest of it, unless you have spectral shields.
So what you need to do, this is what I was thinking. This is what I thought you were getting at with the spectral shield thing, is you would need to play this before damage is dealt, so it sees all of your spectral shields get destroyed, but it also doesn't itself get destroyed because it has ward. So it'll need to be like exact sees on, or not exact sees, but just enough so that it doesn't get popped as well.
Yeah, it would need to be once the spectral shields trigger and they form a layer, then you put this on top of that layer. It resolves first, then each of the spectral shield abilities resolve. They get destroyed and prevent the damage.
Yeah.
I believe. So if that's the case, then this could be a gigantic crackback. Like you have even just like 4 or 5 spectral shields, and you have either Luminaris or, like I said, Iris of Reality. If you have Iris of Reality, you're potentially attacking in for like 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's not bad.
And also it's as a blue, and it's just feeding into my want of the blue illusionist. Give me the blue illusionist already, LSS.
Yeah, the phantom stuff, obviously, all the blue hue sort of things going on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need something for ghostly touch and semblance.
She's
deck that those can live in.
I'm calling it. It's the silver-haired lady. It's the silver-haired Spears of Surreality lady.
Fractal Replication.
Yeah.
And Flicker Trick.
Oh, yeah.
Flicker Trick.
I'm big fan of that character. She's the entire reason why I've worked with Crovius so many times, because I saw that art and I was just like,
Mysteria.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Blue illusionist, gimme.
Anyway, with that
being
said, Kel, what is your third pick?
Pick number 3.
That quick diversion.
Yeah, we got some mystical, magical stuff, but now it's time to get down and dirty with Heist. So obviously, I liked the cool one that the mechanologist card that most resembles like a thief or an assassin card. This is Heist.
Yeah.
It's a 2-drop, 5 attack mechanologist attack action. Blocks for 3. It's a majestic. It has boost. When this hits a hero, you may put an item with cost 0 or 1 from any banished zone into the arena under your control. This card is sick as hell. So, okay. Here's some things why I like it. First of all, you get to recur some of your stuff that you're doing, which is sweet because there's some really sweet items that we're going to talk about as my 4th and 5th picks are some really sweet 0 and 1 drop items. There's some other ones that are awesome too. So you can recur these cards that are just really, really good. But also, you can do it from your opponent's banish zone, which is rad as hell. And also, you can do it from any banish zone, which means if you're playing this in ultimate pit fight, you can be like, does anyone have any like items in their like banish zone? And then you get just sweet value. Like this card's awesome. Yeah, I like this card a lot. It's got recursion. It's a 2 for 5, which is not too bad. Yeah, Heist. Let's do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that being able to steal banished or boosted items from your opponents in like either like probably a UPF game, but also even if you're just doing the mirror match and your opponent banishes, like you're playing this in a max deck and your opponent is also playing max or something else and banishes a hyperdriver, you're just like, cool, I get a free hyperdriver. Or you get to recur like some of the other cards that are on Kel's list or my list. There are a bunch of really, really good 0 and 1 cost items that this just gets back for free. Kind of like you were mentioning with your first 2 with Expedite and Medex.
Yep.
Like the fact that you're able to put them into play without having to dedicate your entire turn or your last action point to it is pretty big, actually.
Yep.
So yeah, I like it. And it does boost.
Yeah, so you can actually use the item too because you'll have an action point from this. You can even
mechanic.
Here's the super sweet tech. You can even get back the item that you boosted from the heist. This card is rad as hell. I love this card. So
it's awesome.
Heist.
What I will say about this is that the poor old lady that this bloke is stealing some stuff from is absolutely flabbergasted by the situation. She's like, no, give me my item back. She's just like,
nah, she's clearly like some sort of like scientist. She's wearing like a lab coat. This is a fine upstanding gentleman robbing from the rich to feed his poor starving family, probably in the pits. He's just stealing from like big metrics pharma here, right? So
yeah, brilliant. Oh yeah, I can see that there's lab coat. It's not just some random old lady. I can see.
I mean, it could be a random old lady. Who knows? But it's called Heist, so I assume he's stealing from someplace at least that's
it's worth stealing from.
Lucrative at least. Yeah.
Not just that poor lady's handbag. Anyway,
I don't trust. All I'm saying is that I trust this dirty scoundrel more than I trust that old lady.
Yeah. No, he's in the foreground, so he's our protagonist.
Yeah, that old lady's sus as hell. All right. Anyway.
Brilliant. So I'm going to move on to is me, isn't it?
It is you.
Yes.
Back to me. Yeah, so this is a cycle that I alluded to earlier with Mechlovasan being just an absolute engine. So we've got Annihilator engine, Terminator tank, and War Machine. So they all just look like huge mech suits that are just blasting all these cannons and stuff. And we saw Terminator tank very early on. In the sort of build up to this, but these are just mental if you have the Mechlovasan suit equipped, because you get all 4 of the modes. So they all do the same thing. They all have the same stat block. They cost 6. They're red and they attack for 6 and block for 3. But they have if you have 1 or more Evos equipped, this gets a certain ability, and then they get sequential abilities. So if you have 2 or more, it costs 3 less. 3 or more, it gets overpower, and 4 or more, it gets +3. So they all have that, but each original one is different. So the Annihilator engine says if you have 1 or more equipped, this gets, when this hits, destroy all cards defending this, which is great,
including Mechlovasan, which is hilarious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you get this off first against a rival Mechlovasan, then you're gonna destroy him first if he blocks. Well, that'd be a stupid idea, wouldn't it? Yes, I'm going to block with my mech suit. Okay,
but
you're dead.
But there's cards that make you have to block. We'll talk about that later.
Yes, exactly.
That's true. That is one of my cards. So
that's on one of your lists.
Yeah,
brilliant. But yeah, so if you've got the Mechlovasan out, these only cost 3 to play. They all have Go Again as well because of Mechlovasan, and they have some ludicrous abilities on them. I just think these are just magical Christmas land, referencing that phrase again. You play these when you got the Mechlovasan suit out, and you're just getting insane value out of all of these.
Well, actually, it's more than that. Hold on, I'm sorry. I was going to say lets you attack your opponent for 24, but it actually lets your opponent attack your opponent for 30. Because you get 6 resources, right, for Mechlovasan, so you can actually play 2 Annihilator. You can play 2 of these, and then also attack twice with Mechlovasan. So that's 12 from his attack, and then an additional 18 for these because they attack for 9. So you can attack for 30.
Yeah. So if you manage to crack off all of that in the same turn, then you are absolutely the moment where you turn into Mechlovasan, you get all of that resources and action points. If you can get multiple attacks with the Mechlovasan suit and the engines, you've just absolutely shat on your opponent's face at that point. Rinsed them completely.
It's over.
It's over. That is Exodia style of end game there. And I just can't wait to see that happen. But yeah, they're just made my list because they can get insane value later on with the Mechlovasan suit, and they're just big Timmy cards, which is what I like, loads of power and stuff on them.
I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but if you can actually do that, that is like, yeah, it is like Exodia, because you attack with Mechlovasan twice and make him discard 2 cards. So now they just have 2 cards in their hand, and they can block 6 against your onslaught of 30 damage. Well, actually, no. It's even less than that, because then you attack with Terminator Tank, and Terminator Tank says when it hits a hero, they discard a card. So that's actually even less. That's even less.
Just take the hand away and just
yeah. You attack twice with Mechlovasan and once with Terminator Tank, and they have very likely discarded 3 cards if they didn't. Well, yeah, they could block with a maximum of 2, really, with Terminator Tank, unless you go with it first and then follow up with the attacks, but is also relevant.
Well, it has overpower, so you'd only be able to block with 1, right?
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
One non-equipment card.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then they have to discard the other card in their hand. Well, yeah. So if you can do it, if you can live the magical Christmas land, you can just kill your opponent. There you go.
Yeah. And like I said, that is where I live. So
Yeah, but even still, if you've only managed to equip 2 Evos or whatever, they're still 3 cost, 6 attack. So 1 card if you've got a blue to then do a 6 attack, which then has an on hit effect, which is still pretty good. If you've got 2, but if you've got 3, they have overpower, etc. Mechlovasan Magical Christmas Land is just absolute ridiculous value, but you can still get a lot of value off of these, even if you have 2 or 3, which I think is still pretty good. So yeah, definitely some good finishes there.
Yeah, the on-hit effects are pretty sweet. Like, there's one that's basically Command and Conquer, destroy all cards in the arsenal, and I think the discard one is probably the best one. But
it is, yeah. The one that says when it hits, destroy all cards defending this. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one because you have to choose to block with the thing that gets destroyed, right? So
yeah,
you're only really chucking the valuables in front of it when you absolutely need to, I guess.
Or unless your opponent makes you do it.
That's right. That's a good segue to the next one.
Which is actually funny. Somebody locally asked a question about that, and based on the rulings for Already Dead and Cyclone Roundhouse, which is Annihilator Engine? Yeah, Annihilator Engine. Or there's a different card that is similar to Annihilator Engine that allows you to destroy a defending card. Powder Keg. Somebody asked about Powder Keg.
Yes.
If your opponent blocks with Mechlovasan and then later in the chain, the same chain, mind you, you hit them with a Mechanologist gun and you have Powder Keg out, you can destroy Teklovasan.
Wow, see you later.
But it has to be in the same chain. It cannot be a previous chain because once the chain is closed, it is no longer a defending card. Anyway, with all that being said, I will talk about my next card. I think we did skip me, unfortunately, because my third card is not relevant to the segue that you provided, but I'm going to jump on that anyway.
Okay.
So speaking of making your opponent block with equipment, we have Magnetic Lockwave, which, not to be confused with Magnetic Shockwave, does have sort of a similar effect of making your opponent block. So this is a Mechanologist action, blocks for 3, pitches for 3, and costs 3x. So it's actually kind of nice that I talk about this one right after talking about and explaining how double X works. This is exactly the same, but there's another X. So to pay this with X equals 1, you would have to pay 1 into all 3 of the costs. And then to pay it, to have X equal 2, you'd have to pay 2 into each of the costs, etc. So it's cubed, I think, is the relationship there.
I think so.
The effect is actually pretty powerful, I will say. For that sort of value, you get target hero chooses X equipment they control. Then you choose one from among them. That hero must defend your attacks this turn with that equipment if able. And then this says go again. So the ideal situation for this is you either whittle your opponent down to a couple of equipment and they're sort of forced into a bad decision, or you pay, a pretty big amount of resources to be able to pick one of their equipment at your will. And then even if it has, if it's just one that breaks, on first hit, then great. But this does say just that hero must defend your attacks this turn with that equipment if able. So like Kel mentioned while we were sort of chatting about this earlier, if you continuously break the combat chain and re-attack with a pistol or something, say, even if their thing has temper or battle worn or whatever, if it's still around, they have to block with it. So it's a really easy way to, if they pick something that has temper or whatever, if all of a sudden you can attack 3 times with your pistol and break the combat chain in between, say goodbye. That equipment is gone. So easily, in terms of ceiling, this is the most expensive card that we've gotten. Even considering ceiling and floor, this card is extremely expensive to play with. Triple X, which as referenced as the Moonshine cost, I believe something similar. But I do genuinely think that this effect is powerful. More than a tech card, probably not, but I think that it's just really good. And it's something that Mechanologist specifically is able to leverage. Breaking the combat chain and continuously remaking it is something that mechs can just do at a baseline. Even just between boost cards.
Yeah, well, as an Azalea player, right, you have crap armor, and 50% of your armor is used as a utility piece, right? So you got Snapdragons to give something go again, or the Bullseye, which we'll have back eventually, to put something into your arsenal. Then you only have the Skullbone and the Tunic left. So if you then Meganetic Lockwave me, I'm just like, for goodness sake, I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up these blade breaks because they're pivotal to the actual hero. So it's not going to be very nice to face this. And just Bright Lights in general seems to have a lot of equipment. Your equipment is not safe in this set, really. So it's going to be interesting to see how it sculpts the field going forward, because there is a lot of equipment hate in this set, and this is definitely worth mentioning for sure.
And if their only equipment is Mechlovasan, you force them to block with Mechlovasan and then Annihilator engine him and destroy him. Just blow him up. Guys.
Blow him up. See you later. Yeah.
So, like, again, the like reasonable floor for this card is you're paying 3 into it, and then it kind of goes up from there if you want more like of an opportunity, I guess, to pick the card that you actually want to destroy. But as a late game piece, and this works well as a late game piece being a blue, like you're usually probably going to be able to play this in your second pitch stack, or, you know, you boost it away or whatever. But if you do get to it in your second pitch stack, and it's late game and your opponent, like as said, only has 2 pieces of equipment and they're both really good, like this could, even just for 3 resources, this could get you there. So yeah, I think it's a really cool card, a really, really great design. Art is fantastic, and triple X, baby.
That's what I mean, though. Like, even like
Rise of Xander Cage.
Xander Cage, oh, brilliant! Vin Diesel, love it.
Hell yeah.
Triple X. But yeah, like even midway through the game, when, for instance, Azalea player is used both their Snapdragons and their Bullseye, they're never going to use the stuff to block, and you force them to do that. That is just horrendous. Even like towards the middle of the game. So I'm not sure what other heroes like lean upon utility pieces that have blade break. Maybe forcing them to use Husk when they don't want to use Husk or something.
Well, there's Husk.
Ninja.
Breaking their mask momentum is pretty brutal.
Yeah. Or like their flick knives or whatever. Like,
well, for assassin, this is pretty easy to get around, because then you just pick,
you
like,
just buy it back.
Well, yeah, you can't buy back flick knives, but you would just be like, because it's just all your other crap has like battle worn or whatever. So I'm just like, I pick Black Tech Whispers and I just block my Black Techs.
Like I say, I think this is either going to just be a sideboard card or it just used as a utility blue. But I do think the utility is there. I think that this card is actually very interesting. But
it's cool.
But yeah, anyway, because I'm behind on a card, do we want to just have me go twice at the end or twice now?
Let's see. As you have one more card left, and I have 2 more cards left. So, and then you have.
Yeah, what we could do, we could go to you and then back to me, and then then we can just kind of go.
Okay.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll
you go next.
Yeah. So it'll be me, you, as me, you. I think. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So my next card is I'm just gonna call it Shenanigans. My next card is Shenanigans. It is Quantum Processor. With a name like Quantum Processor, you know it's going to be Shenanigans.
Yes.
So this is, first of all, absolutely beautiful artwork. Very, very like almost like Deco style futuristic thing. I don't know what you'd call it. Future Deco? I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know. Yeah. So this is a 1-drop yellow pitch mechanologist action item. It has Crank. Which says when this enters the arena, you can remove a steam counter from it. If you do you gain an action point, which is kind of cool. Specifically not go again, you just get an action point. This enters the arena with a steam counter. At the start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a steam counter from it. And then once per turn instant, 0, put a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand into the arena. A lot of the cards that I picked are just like cheating in these 0 or 1 drop things. But hey, I like that. I love like this sort of like circumventing these flesh and blood rules, and in both of these cases, or all three of these cases, you circumvent two things at the same time. You circumvent cost and you circumvent action points, because you do this as an instant for this one. So especially cheating in extra 1-drops is pretty interesting. What's kind of cool about this is you don't technically need to pop the Steam counter. You don't need to crank this. You could just play the quantum processor and then, using its own instant speed effect, just drop another item if you want, and then you'll have another go around with it, because you'll still have the Steam counter, which is pretty cool. Also, you'll have it on your opponent's turn as well, because it's an instant effect. I think this is cool. This is a really cool way to just kind of like turbo out items. This is a cool way to like possibly set up some combo shenanigans if you want to get like a bunch of items out real quick. Yeah, I like this card. This card feels breakable to me. I'm not entirely sure how. Hey, let us know in the comments down below how you would break a quantum processor. But
yeah, I was just thinking, like, why would you want to crank it? But then it's at the start of your turn, so you crank this, and then it's still no. Yeah, you'd still be able to do the instant on your turn and the opponent's turn before it destroys itself on the next turn. Right.
So yeah, what you could do is you could crank this to get an action point, and then use this effect to put an item down. So now you have 2 items, and then use that action point maybe to play something that cares about just like the scrap cards that care about blowing up your items. And so you could like blow up your quantum processor plus whatever you play down, or you could do some sort of shenanigans with it to like kind of like turbo some stuff out. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I like this card. I like cards like this that feel powerful, but that aren't immediately like they don't immediately have a home. Like for this to be good, you have to build a deck specifically around it that doesn't currently exist in Flesh and Blood, and I think that's awesome. So
yeah, you should have to figure out all the nuances.
Yeah, especially with the ability to put in items with crank that give you your action point back. That represents like a pretty big tempo shift in just the item strategy.
I just thought of a sweet combo. Anytime I think about things where you can just cheat action points, I always go back to Toma Fiendel, because it's just a 1-drop draw 2 cards. And I can see a situation where you're like quantum processor into crank cards to like crank, get a bunch of action points, Toma Fiendel, draw 2 cards, crank, get a bunch of action points. It's only once per turn instance, so you can only do it once, but like you could still kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like you can play multiple quantum processors and get the cranks and do a bunch of stuff.
Like I kind of said earlier, I think with Max, you're just going to be able to make a bunch of resources or like a bunch of action points, or have a bunch of items. Like I think having 2-3 action points is going to be like a pretty standard thing for Max to have. Just from my own sort of appraisal of how the deck works. I think you're going to be able to put in a lot of hyperdrivers and just consistently be able to go off with stuff.
That just makes me want to put Toma Fiendels back into mechanologist decks.
I think if there's a mech deck that wants Toma Fiendel, it is like really Max. I think Max appreciates them quite a bit.
Or you can do like with new dash, so that you don't mess up your boosts. So you can check the top of your deck to see if it's a tome, so you don't like goozle yourself off of a boost. Anyway, this card's cool, and it makes me think about making decks, which is the best part about card games. So
well, exactly, it's a shenanigans card, as you said, so there's going to be a lot of nuances to it. So it's a good one.
Cool. So back to you, Bill.
Back to Bill then.
Yeah. Okay. So then my next one I think is going to be kind of a payoff card in the Max deck, and it kind of ropes directly into what I was saying, that I do think that it will be like a reasonable thing to do in a Max deck to just make a bunch of like probably just one type of resource. And this one really leverages being able to make a bunch of action points. This is called Grinding Gears, which is very similar, and I think it's on purpose, very similar to Millstone from Magic.
Yeah.
Like the idea of milling something down, like constant wearing down of something to nothing. And that is exactly what this is. So this is a mechanologist action item. It pitches for 3 and costs 0, and it has crank. So when it enters the arena, it enters the arena with a steam counter. You can remove that steam counter to get an action point as it enters. And then at the start of your turn, you destroy this unless you remove a steam counter from it. So if you leave it around, it stays around for an additional turn. Or if you're able to, if you want to be able to work with it now, you just get it for the one turn. And for all of that, this has a very simple line of text. It is action, pay 0, target hero destroys the top card of their deck. So this is, you could essentially read it as it has pay an action point, destroy the top card of target hero's deck.
Yep.
And like I said, I think there will be versions of Max that are able to maybe even shoot past 3 action points. Like with High Octane, it's pretty substantial. You could go off and have a turn where you just make, I don't know, like 6-7 action points, and just use that to destroy 6 of your opponent's cards. If that happens in the late game and your opponent has just completely run out of cards, that's big. Like that's a huge swing in your direction in terms of tempo, in terms of like even just messing with their pitch stacking, getting you to that end game fatigue board state. And you could, like I said, you could do the big combo with it and get a bunch of action points. Or you could just, you could put this around and then just crank like a couple times on the first turn and then a couple times on the next turn. But then you also have a second copy of this, so you can do it again later. It's really flexible. I think that crank is such a cool mechanic, and it really plays into sort of what this type of card wants to be. You wouldn't want this to be a card that just exists for the entire game. That'd be really toxic, I think, to have this just be a permanent item in a deck where you can just make a bunch of action points.
To be fair, though, there are a few cards that also replace steam counters, like Banksy, Max's weapon. That will put steam counters back on things that have crank, and this is one thing steam counters back onto. So it's just that constant threat of, I can put steam counters potentially back onto the grinding gears and keep grinding you down, which is just messing around with everything that you've just said. And things like steam canister, for instance, instant speed item. Put this on the bottom of your deck. Put a steam counter on an item you control with crank. So there are other ways you can keep these sorts of things around, which is also quite good. So you could build a deck that way, perhaps. Don't know how good it will be.
I think the big sort of game shot, if you're playing around a deck, or if you have a deck that is playing with like grinding gears as a win con, I actually have my last card that I'll talk about just as a tantalizing sort of throw to the future for the listener. I will be talking about a card that combos with this extremely well and allows you to. I don't even want to technically speculate on how many you could get, but I think you could get 10 action points if you combo it with this card. So,
I mean,
okay.
I don't think it's impossible. It might be on the higher end, but I do think it is possible.
I didn't include this on my list, but I do want to mention that there's also ways to like recur this too. There's a card called Prismatic Lens that lets you just get crap back. It's just once per turn instant, 0, reveal a top card of your deck, put a mech item with the same color from your banish zone on top of your deck. So if you somehow banish the grinding gears, you can just get it back. And Prismatic Lens is also a 1-drop item with crank. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this. There's a lot of shenanigans.
Yeah, it's like the scrap mechanic as well. There's a bit of scrap mechanic. So like Scrap Harvester, for instance, when you play it, you can banish an item or equipment from your graveyard, and when this attacks, if it scrapped something, you again put a steam counter on an item you control with crank. So there are consistent ways of filling your steam counters back up for those items that you might want to continuously get value out of. So I think there is a scrap sub-theme in here, like using all these weird items to continuously put steam counters on, that is like the cog works and the steam aesthetic strategy is baked in here. I don't know whether that's mainly for a limited sort of situation, maybe more than constructed, but it's nice to see that there are things that adhere to that strategy as well, with the steam counter like cycle basically. But yeah, good stuff. So do you want to go back to Kel now, or is it back to me now, do you think? Is it?
I think it is back to you because I think you still have 2 cards left,
No,
and then that would leave us all with 1.
No,
so,
I've got 1.
So Az only has 1 left. So if we go to Az, it will be back on
Yes.
track because it'll go Az, me, and then you for our last card each.
Yeah, so this is the rest of us. We all have 1 card left. Okay, we're good.
But
Fantastic.
before we move on, I just want to mention because I don't think any of us picked this card. I think there is a payoff for all of this shenanigans other than just milling. I just read this card, and that is the TikTok clock. Hold on, I don't have it on the. I don't have it on the thing, but the TikTok clock.
Hold on a minute.
It's a 0-drop crank. Enters the arena with the steam counter at the start of your turn. Destroy this, and it deals 1 damage to you unless you remove a steam counter from it. But however, it says whenever a mechanologist attack action card you control hits a hero, destroy the TikTok clock and up to 2 other items in your arena. Then deal X damage to the opponent, where X is the amount of items destroyed this way. So basically, what you want to do is you want to have a crap load of stupid items in your arena in addition to TikTok clock, and then you smash them, and then you blow up the clock and all of your items and hit them for a bunch of damage, which feels like a payoff for the last card that I talked about, the quantum processor, where you just play a card crank, play a card crank, play a card crank, or play a card crank, draw 2 cards, play the whole thing. So anyway,
yeah, no, that's definitely a payoff for all of that item stuff, isn't it? With the crank mechanic for sure, like just using them all after you've got all the resources and the steam out of them, using them to blow up your opponent, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Az.
Cool. My last card is something that we've already alluded to in the past, and that's making people block with things. And this is another Meganetic card. So kind of sort of going in the same direction. This is Meganetic Protocol, which was part of a cycle. There was a few other ones like Destructive Protocol and something else Protocol. But this is a blue block 3, costs 3. So loads of 3s there. And this is a 5 attack mechanologist action with Evo upgrade. And it says the defending hero must defend this with X equipment they control with -1 counters if able, where X is number of Evos you have equipped. So it just sucks in all of the equipments that have -1 counters on. They must defend this with X equipment they control, where X is the number of Evos you have. So if you're thinking of this as a late game card, because it's a blue, you would have pitched it in the first cycle if you're looking at CC, etc. This comes back round after you've done damage, or they've blocked with -1 counters on battle worn things or whatever, or if you get to the Mechlovasan stage where where you've got them to block once and you can keep making them block with more things. So I think it's very, very valuable later on. So I just love the sort of your equipment is not safe cards, which you've mentioned a lot of this podcast. So yeah, that's my last pick, really. Meganotic Protocol.
Yeah, I think it's sweet. Also,
yeah, I agree.
The art reminds me of the squiddies from the Matrix.
Oh god, yeah, squiddies.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, or like Doc Ock from Spider-Man.
Yeah. It's like his all the octopuses without the man. Like it's just all the bits from his back.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, my final card is just a big old rock. So this is a Stasis Cell. I really like this card for a couple of reasons. So Stasis Cell is a 0-drop mechanologist action item, very different than the other items that we talked about. This one does not care about steam counters at all. So this one says, when this enters or leaves the arena, activated abilities of target equipment can't be activated until the end of its controller's next turn. And so activated abilities are stuff like, your Skullbone Cross Wrap,
don't bring that into this.
Your tunic.
Tunic. Cashing in tunic. Yeah, that's an activated ability.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's not all.
Doesn't hit weapons, but still very good.
No. So yeah, this basically locks down an activated equipment, but also it says action, put this on the bottom of its owner's deck, choose an equipment. It can't defend this turn, go again. So this card is sweet. I love this card. It feeds into itself. It doesn't get destroyed at all. So you Stasis Cell on 1 turn, right? And you're like, hey, your thing, you can't do your tunic or whatever. And then on your next turn, you put this on the bottom of your deck, and you're like, okay, now you can't block with your other thing. And then it has go again. The effect has go again, so you could just continue with your turn normally. It's just like an extra bonus thing that you get. I like this card a lot. It's also a blue pitch card. Yeah, I love effects like this. This is something we've talked about before in the Living Legends podcast. I really, really like Chains of Eminence, which is similar-ish kind of thing where you kind of soul read your opponent and try to get it so they can't play a certain card. It's also why I picked Censor as one of my favorite cards from Dusk Till Dawn. I love these kind of sort of hate bearsy style of effects that are really, really unique in Flesh and Blood, and they operate in this kind of space that Flesh and Blood really doesn't operate in. Flesh and Blood, for the most part, is a game about maintaining your resources and potentially denying your opponent's resources. Well, this is somewhat of a resource denial, but it's a little bit different in that it attacks it a different way, and I like it. I like it a lot. So
it chokes out your opponent from being able to probably utilize their equipment in the way that they want to.
Yeah, and
it's very, very different and very interesting.
Yeah, and this obviously would go into a very specific style of deck, right? You're not jamming this in your max, your max deck where you're just trying to hyperdrive or boost them, kill them. This is more of a very methodical control style deck, maybe even in new Dash or something like that.
Yeah, like item control, pistol dash. I do really like Dash IO with her new weapon. I think that's a really interesting weapon. You get to load up 6 shots essentially.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
6-shooter. But that was my final pick. Stasis Cell.
Yeah, I think a lot of these items as well. A lot of these items are maybe overlooked because Dash database and Dash IO didn't exist until now. So if this is on the top of your deck, you can just play this. It costs 1, but you can just play this off the top of your deck without having to use any cards from hand. So all of these items that have these weird effects, weird and wonderful effects, they're not going to clog your hand up if they're on the top. So you can just play the thing off the top and then look at the next thing. Play the thing off the top. Look at the next thing. It's once per turn, isn't it? It's once per turn. You can only do that. Yeah, you can only do that once per turn. But still, if these that'd be ridiculous if you could do that. But yeah, it allows you to play these items off the top of the deck and still not affect your hand really, because you pitch into it. You still got to have some resources floating to then carry on doing your thing after the effect has taken place, like this one, which could help you. So,
and one thing I wanted to mention with the Stasis Cell before we move on is I kind of glossed over it really quickly when I was reading it out, but it's when it enters or leaves the arena. So when you activate it for its action on your next turn, you trigger the first effect again. So you get to pick an item, pick an equipment, and you're like, hey, you can't block with that one, and then you pick another one, and you're like, hey, you can't activate that one, or you pick the same one. But you get to do the lockdown thing a second time, which is cool.
Good stuff.
All right, well, leading into my final one, which is also the final one of the list today, before I talk about it, we have one additional diversion, very, very quick. We got confirmation what the last card we were missing was from the set. The unrevealed Mechanologist Majestic was just a max velocity reprint.
Okay.
Not a card that necessarily needed it, but makes sense for the set. Honestly, with all the stuff that's happening and all the ability that you have to boost, it was probably inevitable. It doesn't have flavor text or any reminder text at all either, so it looks a little bit cleaner. But yeah, so final card. Now we know 100% of the set, which is really cool.
Nice.
But yeah, it was just max velocity.
That's funny because we were speaking about that earlier, weren't we? With the boost card that you were saying about.
Twin drive.
There's actually a handful of reprints in the set too, because there's 0 to 60, there's overloop, and it to pair with the 0 to 50 and the underloop, which are both hilarious.
I like 0 to 50 and underloop is very fun.
They're just worse versions.
just one more side tangent as well, just before we get to Bill's last card, and then close this off for today. It's going to be a long one. The obviously the top fives and these lists are always longer ones.
Not that bad. It's only about an hour and a half so far ish.
Oh, there we are then. Lovely old job.
We're getting good at this.
We are getting good at this. But I was surprised about how many expansion slot cards there were, because we had a lot more revealed even after like Kel spoiled the big ones and stuff. We still had even more being released and discovered in box breaks and stuff, like, you know, the Chromai Ash dust from the Chromai planes and the Illusionist card that we actually came across today. All of these cards are still in the expansion slot. So going forward, that gives me more confidence that there's going to be even more random class cards in sets that don't really care about the classes, which is nice, as we said before, for maybe creators that vibe with certain heroes that get to spoil cards aren't necessarily in, you know, classes that are in the set and all this. So I'm very excited for how that's panning out. I just wanted to say that basically based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah. From a design perspective, what this shows me is like this does really, really feel like a substitution for an expansion set, because you know, you give like 3 or 4 draft sets and you're gonna have like all of the actual cards that matter from an expansion set, and this is a way that they can print the cards that they actually think that matter and that will make a big difference, and not a bunch of like bulk chaff, which was one of the big criticisms of like Dusk Till Dawn, because there's a bunch of just random commons and rares that are just basically just bulk that no one really cares about right now. And so I think that's really what the expansion slot feels like, what they're trying to do, and it makes a lot of sense with the most recent announcement. They're like, hey, we're going to do almost all draft sets going forward now.
Exactly.
So
I like it.
And for limited, I think it's cool that there's less big swingy legendaries that you could draft or get in sealed, because there's only like a couple that actually matter in this, right? There's only a couple of the mechanologist ones, and all the rest are expansion slot ones, you know? So
yeah. All right. Final card. This one is the card that, if everybody was on the edge of their seat since I was talking about my last card, this is the payoff for that. This is a card that I think is really cool. It was on Kel's sort of like overflow, like backup, because we don't like to overlap on these because we usually have a decent discussion on them. So we generally tend to sort of work with each other's lists. And this is System Reset. Which is a card with phenomenal data doll art. It is another Majestic. It's a yellow, so it pitches for 2, blocks for 3, and costs X. I have 3 cards in my top 5 that have X in different capacities.
I just want to point out that I kind of just realized this with that statement, that all 3 of us had kind of like a loose theme with our picks. It was not planned, by the way. We literally came up with our lists like maybe like 20 minutes before we started, 20 minutes to an hour before we started. Bill has like this X cost theme, as has like this kind of like Evo theme. Like all of his a lot of his cards cares about Evos, and mine is all about like the 0 or 1 drop items, like either playing them for free or whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's cool.
But yeah, anyway, so this one is an X card that cares about 0 or 1 cost items.
It does, yes.
Because it reads: banish X mechanologist items you control with cost 0 or 1, then return them to the arena under their owner's control. So you could theoretically get a bunch of items out that all have crank. Either you play this once or you just have a couple of things in play. Again, I think that with Max, some amount of this is going to be very easy. I don't think you're going to be able to get a lot of action points and resources, or like resources, and it's going to be like a pick 1.5. You're probably going to be able to get like a decent amount of one and a good amount of the other without any of the third. Or like you have to kind of mix and match.
Unless you're playing Toma Fiendel and you get a draw card.
Unless you're playing Toma Fiendel and you draw a bunch of cards. But anyway, so you have a bunch of things with crank in play. You feed like 4 or 5 resources into this, and you get to blink all of your like 5 items with crank, put them back into play. You crank all of them as they come into play. 5 more action points, baby. Grinding gears. God. Let's go.
You could.
Oh wow.
You could actually do some kind of crazy stuff with this. Like you need an action point. No, you don't even need an action point because you have the crank. Because I was gonna be like, okay, here's the situation. Because the way hyperdriver works, if you attack with a single thing with boost, all your hyperdrivers will trigger, and then you'll have a bunch of resources. So if you have a bunch of hyperdrivers and then you attack with like a 0 to 60, then you just get like a bunch of resources, and then you can just blink all your hyperdrivers. They get a bunch of action points.
Yeah. Once you've blinked your hyperdrivers, if you had another 0 to 50 or something, you just attack with that for free, get a bunch of resources again, and then you freaking destroy all of them with Moonshot. This deck builds itself. This is easy.
There's even some other crap that we didn't talk about either. That kind of that I was thinking about too. That's like, it's also like an X that it's like, oh, like banish X items from your graveyard or something like that, and it gets really powerful. Like, I don't know. Is this good? Are we just like in magical Christmas land? I can't tell.
At this point, the amount of speculation that I've done since Tales of Aria, whenever I really like something, it always turns out to be trash, because it just like doesn't work. It is not feasible in a regular game. I don't care. I don't care if this thing is bad. Listen to me talk about it, and how sweet does it sound? It sounds pretty sweet, doesn't it?
It's pretty sweet, yeah. I think it's cool. I really like this card. I just can't. Part of me is like, is this Storm? Like, are we storming here? Like, are we doing like a?
No,
like,
this is a storm card.
Yeah, we're just storming. Like, this is like
this card is turnabout.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is your turnabout.
Yeah, this card's turnabout.
Or your dramatic reversal or whatever. Like untap all your crap. Do more stuff. Like, I do.
Yeah, I really like it. I really like. Again, I like all the cards that I picked today. I like all the cards that they just decided to print in this set. I think that they're really cool. I like the fact that they printed a lot of 0 to 60 and zipper hit and overloop like dupes that are not quite as good, but they give you a little bit more flexibility. Like even for the ones that we got to reveal over at the Spike Feeders, which, forgive me, I only remember the name of Dumpster Dive because it's just the dumpster train has no brakes.
I remember. I think the other one was like Rocket Sprocket or something like that. Because they were
Sprocket Rocket. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, both of them have like hilarious names that are just kind of like this alliteration, rhymey kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, both phenomenal. But they are, if you boost an item or equipment with them, they turn into 0 to 60 / zipper hit respectively. So people are like, you can just replace the yellows with these. And sometimes they'll be the same. Other times they'll just be a 0 for 3 that blocks 3, and that's totally fine. That's something that I like about this set. There are things that allow you to fill out the 40 or 60, whichever format you play, with cards that are relevant to these new strategies without feeling like it's a set just full of draft chaff. And at the same time being built around this crack shuffle play mentality that I think is going to work really well. There's a lot of really intricate overlapping between the three that all kind of just makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to be going over it a little bit further with Tommy Fresh over at Fresh and Buds for our full set review where we talk about every single card. But yeah, I think the set has, like, this set in terms of design is just kind of knocked out of the park. I think it's really, really good.
I think it's kind of funny. It'll be really funny for new players getting into this, because I feel there's going to be a pretty large influx of new players between Bright Lights and the Round the Table product. That, like, I feel like there's a huge chunk of the cards that are really simple and easy to understand, and then there's like just insane crap that most players that are brand new are going to be like, what the hell is this? Like, why is this good? Like, they're going to see grinding gears, and they're going to see like system reset, and they're going to see like quantum processor, and they're going to be like, what's all this garbage? Like,
yeah, this doesn't attack. This is garbage.
Like, why would I want to destroy the top card of their deck? Like, mill them one? That seems terrible.
Yeah.
I want to play the Terminator tank instead.
An entire action point. But yeah, it's really cool. Again, I like the idea that it's basically pay an action point to destroy one of your opponent's cards. Just kind of a neat sort of payment there. I like that. But Yeah, I like how everything just sort of ties together. There are a lot of individual, like I said, there are things that make them very much of one strategy, but there is also, again, a lot of overlap. Like just wanting items versus wanting specifically hyperdrivers versus wanting Evos that care about hyperdrivers, like whatever. There's a lot of stuff that just sort of works out.
Yeah, and a lot of care about, if you've destroyed an item, you get extra things and all this.
Yeah, we didn't even talk
there's
about any of the cards with the galvanize.
Yeah,
No,
or
exactly.
scrap.
But
There's
it's
like
just
scrap and galvanize. Yeah.
Yeah, we touched a little bit on scrap when we were speaking about the Steam recursion stuff. But yeah, there is a lot of different archetypes in here which all meld together, as you're saying there. So
I was gonna say it was on Bill's second backup list, and I was considering it too. But they basically made like a dark ritual in this set too, where it's just like sack some scrap and add a bunch of resources. And I was like looking at it, I'm like, this seems cool. Like,
yeah,
I'm into that.
Won't go into it too much, but yeah, it's a scrap trader. Yeah, it's a 0-cost mechanologist action that allows you to scrap twice, which is as an additional cost to play, banish an item or equipment from your graveyard, and then you gain 2 resources for each card that's scrapped.
Yeah.
So this is a 0, get rid of resources that are already gone, resources in your graveyard, to gain 4 resources.
Yeah.
Sick.
It's
gas.
Sort of. It's a weird one. It's an action, right? Not an instant, and it doesn't have go again. So you have to somehow cheat it out or use the resources to play an instant or something, but still cool.
Again, I feel like keeping track of action points, like especially right now moving forward, is actually going to be a thing that people have to care about now. Keeping track of multiple action points throughout a turn, especially if you're playing max. Like I'm willing to be proven completely wrong, but just everything that comes together in this really feels like they're just going to be able to make a bunch of something.
Yeah. It's going to be really fun to talk to Brian Gottlieb about Bright Lights in a couple weeks. So what we want to do for the Living Legends podcast, I've already talked to Brian. He is going to be coming on the show to talk about Bright Lights. I'll probably post about questions, if people have questions for him on the socials. I also have a lot of design questions, especially some of the stuff that we talked about today. But it's a really interesting set. That video will likely go live shortly after the set officially launches. I think it'll be the Wednesday after the set officially launches, and we want that because we want to plan it around that because we want players and us to have a chance to actually play with the cards before we ask questions about them. So
pre-releases and all this, and crack and shuffle and play on the stream or whatever. We want to crack some products and get all that done as well. But yeah, that was our top 5 in no particular order, because we did actually mess up the order.
It was a pretty messy one. It was a scrap heap of.
Oh, look at that!
5. Brilliant.
There we go. Brilliant. Oh, it's just so good. It's just so natural, just jokes coming out all over the place. But so Living Legends podcast, we're going to get to the mailbox because we got a very long email from someone. So if you want to email us, it's livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com. Or if you want to interact with the videos on or tweet at us or X us. I don't know what that sounds a bit naughty. X us, baby. Whatever you want to do, interact with us. Leave us a comment on the video versions on Red Zone Rogues channel, of course, or email us at livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com. We will read out your thoughts, comments, and questions. Today's comes from the email address, and this is from Alex Pauls. So Alex says, it's quite a long one, so bear with me. I just started playing recently after picking up an Uzuri Blitz deck on a whim while at a pre-release for Wilds of Eldraine. So obviously they picked up the Uzuri Blitz deck while they were playing Magic. And showing up to an armory event at my LGS. The people were super welcoming, and despite getting absolutely stomped by a very blinged out Prism deck, is that you, Bill? I had a blast.
I wish.
I now have 4 heroes in the making: Phi, Uzuri, Azalea, and Dorinthia.
Nice.
and I'm loving this game so much. Needless to say, I've had Fab on the mind a lot and found your podcast to help keep me updated. I've listened to about 7 episodes so far, and I thought it would be fun to describe what I imagine you all look like in my head, as I have never seen any pictures or YouTube videos of you gentlemen.
Oh, wow. So they found the podcast, the audio-only version of the podcast, and have never seen the videos. That's crazy.
Never seen the videos. It's crazy, isn't it? It just goes to show how far audio goes as well. I'll be sure to subscribe afterwards. Oh, there you go. So Alex is probably subscribed to Red Zone Rogue. But Alex, if you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe to Spike Feeders and Go Again Gaming as well. Do it. I apologize if I've spelled your names wrong. So first of all, Bill, I imagine you as having blonde hair with soft facial features. You're about 5'8" tall. You have 0 facial hair and are fairly lean.
Man.
Oh, brilliant. The fact you're from the prairies, I think I heard you mention Winnipeg, means I always imagine you in a rather large winter parka. That's got to be true. I remember your winter jackets that you were buying a long time ago. Even in the summer, you have very good posture and constantly smile. There we go. Brilliant.
Well, I do remember reading this email and reading it out to my girlfriend Riley, and thank you so much for this email, by the way. Like, I was reading it, and it's just such a thoughtful thing to do. Like, it's really brilliant. Cool to get that sort of just like first impressions type information. But yeah, my girlfriend said, "Wow, they seem to think that you're way more attractive than you actually are."
Oh my god!
And I was like, "Yeah, I know, right?"
Oh, brutal! Oh, so brutal.
Oh mate, just wait till you hear mine. I'm absolutely insulted now. Not really. It's absolutely hilarious.
I think I'm the only person here who hasn't actually read it. I'm a little afraid.
Oh, you're gonna like it. It's a very positive email. It's
cool. It is hilarious. So he goes on to say, as you're a redhead in my mind, you have a very large beard with a defined split between your beard and mustache, which you keep well maintained, and you also wear very thick glasses. Imagine a taller librarian Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
I love that image.
Oh my god.
Who, instead of having a friendly competition with his archer friend, has a shrine dedicated to them in his closet.
I mean, not wrong about that one.
No,
that's not wrong.
Absolutely 100% accurate.
100% accurate. But it's not even in the closet; it's on the wall. And then Kel, he says, "You always make me think you're wearing a suit, but the suit is a casual 2-piece, opened up and no tie. You have black hair and a defined jawline. I always picture you around 6'2" for some reason. I imagine you having a pro streaming setup with 8 monitors all stacked beside on top of each other to the point they're unusable to anyone but you."
So that's actually like a little right, because I almost always wear a black blazer in my YouTube
You're always
videos.
wearing a suit jacket every time.
Yeah. No tie. I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'11" not quite 6. This fairly close. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. No, again, like as much as we were laughing, I don't want it to come across like we think this is ridiculous. It's like, again, I personally think that this is like such an awesome email to get.
Yeah, I know,
I really appreciate you reaching out and giving us this, because I don't know, it reminds me of the fact that we do have like an actual audio only podcast. Like there are people who take this podcast in completely audio.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, I take it for granted that I know exactly what Az and Kel look like because I stare at their stupid mugs every week.
That's right.
But yeah, again, like it was so cool to see this email come in, and just really, really different, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort put into this.
Absolutely.
So cheers, Alex. So he finishes. Anyways, I hope you guys found this fun to read and maybe brought a few laughs out. It definitely did. We were cracking up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
from sheer joy of this. But yeah, Alex from Burlington, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cheers, buddy. You're about probably 8 hours away from me because Canada is just extremely wide.
It is wide.
But yeah, thanks so much for the support. Extremely appreciated.
Yeah, it's absolutely is awesome. But yeah, if you want to get your sort of thoughts, questions, and assumptions of what we are and what we look like, then email us at livinglegendspodcast@gmail.com or continue to interact with us on the socials and or Red Zone Rogue YouTube channel for where we see the comments. And I had a nice comment last week. As looks like he's lost some weight or is working out, looking good.
I saw that one.
I saw that too.
So that was nice, but I don't know what you're looking at because that's probably not happened.
It's I know Az actually listens to this guy. Chris Broad has talked about this before, and it's the YouTube thing. You angle down, you've lost weight. Angle up, you've gained 10 pounds. Down,
so here we go. Look at that angle. Brilliant. But yeah, it might just be because I am like over the recent podcast, I'm sat in the lounge, so the camera is actually elevated looking down. That's probably what it is, but I appreciate the comment nonetheless. I did, for people that were tuned in to Go Again Gaming maybe a few weeks ago, I did do a wild experiment where I was only eating protein for 14 days, and then I went to Switzerland, and then it all went out the window, and then so it's all Pascal's fault. If you're listening to this, mate, that's all your fault. Bloody Switzerland bread and cheese and all this.
Oh, that sounds chocolate. Lovely.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great time. But I learned some valuable lessons from doing the restrictive diet. So now it's sort of evolved into I can have nice things, but just don't take it overboard, you know. So maybe it has had a little bit of a knock-on effect there, but it was a lesson learned nonetheless, which is all good. So yeah. That is pretty much it for this week. So should we want to go round the table and do where people can find us? Start with Kel.
Hello, I'm Kel. You can find me at Red Zone Rogue literally everywhere. So far, I'm not on the other thing that Bill was on. I can't even remember. Master Slack Blue Sky. One of those.
Master Slack Blue, so Threads a Sky.
Oh, Threads too. I forgot about that one as well. Red Zone Rogue everywhere. Usually, if you want like social media, it's Twitter. I'm not calling it X. And also on Instagram a little bit, but mostly just on Twitter or YouTube. Yep, that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, we should definitely shout out our stuff because we have audio listeners, so it's always worth doing, isn't it? Yeah, Bill.
Yes. I am Bill from the Spike Feeders. I was about to say also known as Red Zone Rogue, which is patently not true.
That's a little suspicious.
I'm Bill from the Spike Feeders. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky now. At BillTSF. You can also find me on YouTube at Spike Feeders Fab. We do live edited gameplay content, and if that's something that interests you, you should definitely go check us out. We are going to be doing a live UPF game with realistically and most likely the new Round the Table product that LSS and the professor came out with. So if you're interested in that, then you should definitely go check us out. Drop us a follow, and you'll be notified as soon as that comes out.
Yeah,
and
good times.
To be completely honest, if we ever do like an in-person like Living Legends podcast, Flesh and Blood and or Magic game, it'll probably likely both of them will likely be over on the Spike Feeders to some degree. So yes, there's that.
Yeah, if we ever get over to the Spike Feeders studio for sure.
The distant land of Kenyatta. Maybe next year, actually. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, well, if we're all in Barcelona, which we do plan to be there, well, obviously, we're just waiting for your passport, Kel. Me and Bill are definitely going, I imagine.
Yeah. My passport is good, and my flight is booked. And Kel, or Az, has the Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing else for me to worry about. It's just a waiting game now.
Just a waiting game. But what I was getting at with that is that we probably will record a podcast with all of us present in the video. while we're there, just for the lols. Maybe even a few. We'll see how much time we have. But
it'll be probably significantly more jank than normal because I do not plan on bringing my laptop to Barcelona. So it'll be like, I don't know, like a weird like phone version like that I record using my phone. I have no idea. It'll be.
I'll have a laptop there. I'll have a little one there. So we'll figure something out for it. But yeah, that's gonna be all to come. Hopefully, if everything squares away in time, we'll all be there. Me and Bill will definitely be there, of course. But just waiting for Kel. Hopefully, crossing fingers that it comes back. But
should be fine. It says it's processing, so it wasn't declined or anything. So I should get it before November. So
yeah, well, we've still got a month and a half. Still got a month and a half to go. But
the ETA was like October, like late October, like 28th or something like that. So
yeah, so you still got a couple of weeks after that then really for leeway, so it should be fine. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I'm Az from Goarin Gaming. I don't recommend checking out my channel because it's garbage. But
now
it's Goarin Gaming.
Now you have to check it out just to see if it's really garbage or not. So you basically have to go over to Az's channel and subscribe to see.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Goarin Gaming and then Goarin Gaming AZ on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It is still twitter.com if you type it into the URL. So as far as I'm aware. But that's pretty much showing places where I'm pretty much active at the moment. So yeah, go and check out those things when you can. And livinglegenspodcast@gmail.com for any long stories or comments on anything. And then make sure you engage with us on the socials and the YouTube as well, because we will read out things every week. But until next time, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Cheers, folks.
Adios, everybody.
Stay tuned for lots more Bright Lights stuff in the next couple of weeks, including Brian Gottlieb to talk about the set and designing it, Sam Yang to talk about art, and then next week I have no idea what the hell we're doing. Probably talking about our experiences with pre-release if we're able to go or whatever else. So
yeah, something or other. We'll see you to do it all over again then. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Leaving that one in.
Good one.